Oh my God. Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, to this day has been dropped out of the top 5. And we're live. Deontay Wilder has been removed from the top 5 within the WBC. He was highly ranked within the WBC, but after suffering a loss to Joseph Parker, the WBC has seen fit to remove him completely from the top 5. They don't believe he's worthy of that spot, and other people should be in front of him. So right now, I'm on the WBC's official website. Subscribe to the channel. Tyson Fury gets ready to fight Alexander Usyk of Ukraine, and that is his next fight. He is the WBC champion representing Great Britain, UK. But this is where it gets interesting. These are the most updated ratings. In at number 1, Anthony Joshua. So keep in mind, Wilder was like, I believe, the number 1 spot on the last list. But it just goes to show you, boxing is a what have you done for me lately type of sport. The top 3, he's been completely removed. It says Anthony Joshua, number 1. Frank Sanchez in at number 2. And rounding off the top 3, the guy that beat Wilder, Joseph Parker. Then they even put Ajit Kabiel, who just defeated that Game of Thrones looking dude with the eyebrows. He's at number 4. They even showing F.A. Ajagba more love. And he just fought some dude from Australia and hasn't really been active. Number 6, American heavyweight Jared Big Baby Anderson. Then you have number 7, Daniel Dubois, who just, he weathered the storm, I would say, with Gerald Big Baby Miller. That was a pretty fun fight on the same card that Wilder lost. And then finally, you get to Deontay Wilder. So he's still in the top 10, but he has been completely removed from the top 5. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't say Wilder looks sensational at all versus Joseph Parker, but to drop him 6, 7 spots and put him by Philip Ergovich at 9 and newcomer Francis Ngannou and Martin Bakole, I don't know. I don't know. So let me know in the comment section what you guys feel about the WBC's top 10 list. Here's the other thing. People in boxing, especially the fans, but they get really dramatic. They get real dramatic when it comes to losses in boxing. Fighters lose. And I understand some people blame Floyd Mayweather. Listen, I'm not blaming Floyd Mayweather because, see, that's one of the misconceptions I hate in boxing, to be honest, where people say, oh, everyone's afraid to lose their O because of Floyd. You can't blame a person who, what do you want him to lose? He got to lose. So that's not the culture. That doesn't even make sense. And then some of the same people who actually advocate for this narrative that Floyd got people protecting their O's, they were the same people hating on Floyd, saying Floyd was bad for boxing and Floyd needs to retire and the game is better without Floyd. So listen to what I say. The things that I say, I don't care if they're popular. I don't care if they're unpopular. At some point, it's going to all make sense to you. But just listen to what I say. How can you blame Floyd for fighters who are not taking challenges or preserving their O's and trying to remain perfect, but then you were the same ones hating on Floyd and saying Floyd was all that was wrong with boxing? It's like boxing fans, they want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to say Floyd's influence on the game, he's not the best fighter, he's not the biggest of his generation, all these lies, but then they want to put something negative on Floyd Mayweather. Like, you made fighters protect their O's. I don't believe that, because this is what I do believe. I believe that at the end of the day, it's almost freedom of choice. So if you didn't like the old guard or the previous rule, like let's say it's a kingdom, and you didn't like the old guard, you didn't like the old king, the old emperor, then now when that person is not in power anymore and you become the emperor or you become the king, if you hated all these things that the previous king did, then now that you're in power, change them. But instead, that would be too easy. So instead, what people do is they just blame Floyd for fights not happening that literally have nothing to do with Floyd, right? So I think losses in boxing are oftentimes dramatized. It's like a movie. When you see a movie and then elements of the movie, even if it's based on a true story, elements of that movie might be Hollywood, where they were ad-libbing. Like this scene didn't actually happen in real life. Like let's say it's a paranormal, you know, those paranormal movies like Paranormal Activity, right? And then even if it's based on a true story, there's going to be a lot of it that is sensationalized or fictitious. Like this element of it, did the ghost really come out and say, F you, get out of the house? Ah! Like, did that really happen in the true story and the two accounts of what happened? Probably not, right? And I also feel like you kind of get that sensationalism in boxing when it comes to people losing. Joseph Parker's a former champion. Wilder was on a long layoff. I told you exactly what went on. It's not surprising. Styles make fights. There was a lot of pressure on Wilder to perform because Wilder was the man who was in line to fight Anthony Joshua if he got past it. So you got pressure, you got absence and inactivity, you got the fact that Joseph Parker had a good strategy with Andy Lee and a good game plan. I mean, it's not really that far-fetched. So to drop him 6-7 spots, I don't know if that's justified. We've seen, like, let's say Joe Joyce. Joe Joyce got knocked out by Zhang 2 times in a row, right? Back to back. And then the second fight was worse. You know, you got fighters like the WBC got Ajit Kabiel. Listen, he has one good performance he's number 4 off of one good performance against a guy that was hyped up that really hadn't proven anything. All he did was look scary, right? F.A. Jogba, he's been kind of inactive. He looked pretty bad versus Frank Sanchez. Now, I can't say anything against Frank Sanchez because he's been doing his thing. He keeps winning, but you can't say he's fought top level. So I don't know. These rankings look kind of weird. But at the end of the day, you know, it sucks for Wilder, but it was on Wilder. The onus was on Wilder to perform to get that Joshua fight. Now they're happily moving on, in my opinion, and they've made the Ngannou fight. I don't know that Joshua really, him and his team really ever wanted to fight against Wilder. And Wilder, by losing, he allowed them to continue the charade and to look past him. Because let's be real. I mean, you can say whatever you want about Joseph Parker. He had a good game plan. He was crafty. He's smaller than Joshua. Joshua was big and like almost robotic and clunky. So the movement and the adjustments that Parker made, Styles make fights, right? So who's to say that Joshua would be in and out and moving and, you know, coming in with his head and getting real low and ducking under punches at 6'6" and muscle bound. So that could have been a completely different fight. But now we don't know, and we may never know because they dropped Wilder so low from the top 5 and he ended up losing. So as a result, you know, you got to live with the results. But I think it is an injustice for Wilder, a lot of it, because I also feel Wilder is like too brave for his own good. And so is guys like Errol Spence. And this really, I'm going to keep it relatively short because I don't want to make the video too long. But at the end of the day, these fighters got to smarten up in that regard, because when you're winning, it's all popping. You know, people asking for autographs and stuff like that. But boxing is a mean and cruel sport. And when you start losing or when you look bad or pathetic in a performance, they completely write you off. And you did all this stuff to appease them, appease the fans, appease boxing Twitter. And then when you lose, like let's say Stephen Fulton, he got cooked in a way, right? Tyson Fury was playing games. You still pursued him, and then you lose 2 times on the back half of the trilogy, and then he goes on. He's making all the money in Saudi with Usyk, and he continues. And then now Wilder's stuck picking up the pieces because he kept taking risks and risks that other people wouldn't take. Like, let's be real. Wilder fought a former champion off a long layoff in 1 round. He had 1 round with Robert Helenius. 1 round. He came in with 1 round versus Helenius, and that's the only amount of activity he had in several years. Look it up. And he came back and fought a guy like Joseph Parker, who's durable, crafty, can move, can punch a bit, you know what I mean? Things like that. Do you think Canelo would fight a former champion that was still, like, you know, not completely out of it? Do you think Canelo would come in and fight David Benavidez? But then you got guys like Errol Spence Jr., and guess what? Errol Spence Jr. fighting one of the toughest outs in the welterweight division, if not the toughest out, in Crawford, off of injury, off of inactivity. Wilder's coming off of 1 round and pretty much inactivity, fighting a former champion in a fight where that guy could spoil things for the Joshua bag. But everyone else, like, no one else is doing that. Like, let's say Jaime Munguia. Jaime Munguia this weekend is fighting against John Ryder, who he's coming off a loss to Canelo, right? Joseph Parker fought like 3 times last year, 3-4 times last year. So he had activity coming off of the loss to Joe Joyce. So he was far more active. He even fought in Saudi Arabia like 50 days before he fought Wilder in Saudi Arabia. So these fighters, their teams, and their decision-making has to smarten up, because once you're out the picture, you see what happens next. They steamroll you. They took Wilder out the top 5. WBC moves on, ranks everyone in front of you. The fans act like they forget about you. And this is, you know, kind of because you're too tough or bold for your own good. If I were Wilder, I would have taken an absolute cupcake just to not spoil the bag with Joshua. And people can complain like, oh, why is he fighting, you know, lesser competition? But this is why it's extremely dangerous to fight somebody who's because like even fighting a Joseph Parker, what if you get cut? What if you get an injury? That messes up your Joshua. Like, it's not even just losing. You fight someone who's too hard and too dangerous, your rounds might be too tough. Even in a victory, you might get cut. You might get an injury. You might, you know, expose more vulnerabilities. So realistically and strategically, I think Wilder and other fighters like Errol Spence, if they have a big mega match, they need to enter it in the best possible way, in the best mind space, physical condition. If Errol couldn't make 47, he should have said, oh, to heck with these 147 belts. Crawford got to fight me at 54. I'm not comfortably making this. Or let me get a tune-up because you just fought David Avocado in December. Why I can't get no tune-up? But these fighters are like prideful and, you know, spiteful and defiant, and they don't do these things. And then now they're dropping you out the top 5. Just my thoughts.